Okay, my friends. With all that said, we're going to dive right into our next book, Nehemiah, or Nehemiah, as I like to say. But
Wait,
you
is
say
that
you
like Nehemiah?
you say yeah, exactly. It's you
You
say
say potato, I say
Nehemiah. I say
potato.
You say
Nehemiah.
tomato.
Right, right,
Nehemiah. Eventually, one of us is right, and I'm pretty sure it's me, but that's
right.
okay.
I'm pretty sure it's you too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
I
yeah. The
agree.
Nehemiah action, right? Not
Right,
just
right,
the Nehemiah action, but
right.
Nehemiah.
yeah. But that's great. That's a wonderful tomato. But it also shows you, how often that book is read, which is not very much at all.
Right.
Because no one says, no one pronounces Esther's name wrong. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Esther we know, Ruth we know, easy enough.
Yeah.
No one calls her Rith. We know it's Ruth.
Right.
But Nehemiah, we can just—it's all good.
Nehemiah.
It's all good in Hollywood. So what we're gonna say is we don't need a big long intro on this guy because really it's the same intro I gave last week for Ezra. It's these books were actually again for the most part paired, and when you even see conversations about this book, it's usually paired with Ezra. That they were both of these two gentlemen were the leaders of the community at this time. Ezra more from a proto-rabbinic maybe point of view, where because there were no rabbis back then, but in terms of his role as like scholar and teacher and scribe, versus Nehemiah or Nehemiah being the more of the political authority, right? He's the one who's sort of running the show from a governmental level, but he's also going to get involved in the religious and cultural well-being of the community. And so pretty much the first half of the book is more political, and the second half is a little bit more again that religious and cultural concerns that he shares. Though there is some intermingling as we'll see. And once we get to chapter 8, I believe it's chapter 8. I'm pretty sure is one of the most important chapters, not only of his book, but really any of the books, in the writings. It's a very important, and we'll see why, but it's a very important chapter. And so hopefully we're going to touch upon that today. So with all that said, I'm going to quit gabbing and I'm going to get us going here with our reading. So I will share my screen and we can begin. Sharon, lucky you! You're always the first one on the list when I share my screen. You're always at the first screen. Okay,
I'm lucky.
You're lucky. So let's see who this dude is. We're gonna get a little bit of his origin story, his background.
Okay.
And we remember again this is the post-exilic period. So this is after the Persian conquest of Babylon, and this is where we're going to find Nehemiah. Okay, Sharon, you can pick up here the narrative.
Okay. The narrative of Nehemiah, son of Hachaliah, in the month of Kislev of the 20th year, when I was in the fortress of Shushan Hanai, one of my brothers, together with some men of Judah, arrived, and I asked them about the Jews, the remnant who had survived the captivity, and about Jerusalem. They replied, the survivors who have survived the captivity there in the province are in dear trouble and disgrace. Jerusalem's wall is full of breaches and its gates have been destroyed by fire.
Okay, yeah, so here he is, right, in Persia, and he's getting some news, right? Some news from the homeland, so to speak. Hey, what's going on? How are all those Jews doing back in Judah? The ones who weren't schlepped here to Babylon / Persia at this point in time. How's everyone doing? You know what? Not so great. You don't call, you don't write. If you'd called and written a little more, we'd know what's going on. But the survivors are not doing well. It's sort of a dog eat dog world. And the walls are all messed up. We're sort of broken down from 50 years when the Babylonians came in and smacked us around and broke everything. And their gates are still destroyed. No one's rebuilding anything. It's a broken mess. problem, right? Not a great thing. Okay, and Nehemiah and Nehemiah is a little bit emotional. Sharon, you can tell us why. Uh,
When I heard that, I sat and wept and was in mourning for days, fasting and praying to the God of heaven. I said, "O eternal God of heaven, great and awesome God, who stays faithful to the covenant with those who love God and keep the commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to receive the prayer of your servant that I am praying to you now, day and night, on behalf of the Israelites, your servants confessing the sins that we Israelites have committed against you, sins that I and my father's house have committed."
Nehemiah is definitely guilty of the sin of the run-on sentence, because this is a mouthful. The man could have used a period now and then, I guess. Just please, my goodness, he sounds like a rabbi. I mean, just end the sentence, dude. It's okay. You don't have every sentence has to be an exegesis. You can just period is fine, not just commas. I resemble that remark. Okay, so fine. So he's upset, he's praying. He's going to talk about, how all of his ancestors have sinned. So he's praying here, about what has happened in the past and maybe what can happen in the future. Renee, you want to pick up here?
Okay. We have offended you by not keeping the commandments, the laws, and the rules that you gave to your servant Moses. Be mindful of the promise you gave to your servant Moses. If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. But if you turn back to me faithfully, keep my commandments, even if you're dispersed or at the ends of the earth, I will gather them from here and bring them to the place where I have chosen to establish my name. For they are your servants and your people whom you redeemed by your great power and your mighty hand.
Mighty hand, that Yad Chazakah, that mighty strong hand of God. Now, here we see Nehemiah really speaking to the promises, right, that God has made to the Israelites. The promises we speak about during Passover, amongst other times of year, but the idea of memory, right, that if we do well, right, if we listen to God, if we observe the commandments, things are supposed to go better for us. When things go badly, it's because we ourselves have trespassed, we have made mistakes, we have erred, we have sinned. And so, given the fact that I think Nehemiah here believes that we are doing a little bit better, perhaps, maybe it's time to, let's forgive a little bit. A little forgiveness goes a long way, so let's apologize. Let's let bygones be bygones. Let's move on, a little bit and get to a better place. Okay, Renee, you want to finish this off? Oh, eternal?
Sure. O eternal, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who desire to hold your name in awe. Grant your servant success today and dispose that man to be compassionate toward him. I was the king's cupbearer at the time.
Sort of a non sequitur, it sounds like, but the idea here being that man, dispose of that man to be compassionate. The idea here is that he wants the king of Persia to be positively disposed, because he's going to do an ask. He's going to go to the king of Persia and say, hey, as I'm pouring your wine here, as I'm giving you the Manischewitz, maybe you want to listen a little bit to what I have to say, because I have something to tell you. And so that's sort of the end of his prayer here, is sort of saying, hey, let me have good luck, good fortune when I go talk to the king here. Okay, and I know that because chapter 2 begins with the king. So, Leah, you want to read over here?
No, I'm not going to get well. Anyway, sure.
Yeah.
In the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of, or its 20th year of King Artaxerxes, wine was set before him. I took the wine and gave it to the king. I have never been out of sorts in his presence. The king said to me, how is it that you look bad, though you are not ill? It must be bad thoughts. I was very frightened, but
Bye-bye.
I answered the king, may the king live forever. How should I look bad when the city of the graveyard of my ancestors lies in, how should I look? How should I not look bad?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Mixed up tonight. How should I not look bad when the city of the graveyard of my ancestors lies in ruins and its gates have been consumed by fire?
Okay, very nice, right? So we're back to King Artaxerxes, our good friend Arta. His friends call him Xerxes, however we want to do it. His wine is set before him. Again, getting a little boozed up. It's nice, having a nice casual night at home. Maybe watch a little Netflix with a glass of Pinot. It's fine, But the king is looking at him going, hey, buddy, what's going on? You look a little forlorn. You look a little under the weather, a little whatever it might be. You don't look so hot. There's something on your mind, a penny for your thoughts. And then, Nehemiah says, sure, look, it's not so great. I'm just thinking, I got a lot on my mind. My people, my homeland, my city is a mess. It's all broken down and destroyed. How am I supposed to look, when things are going so poor? A little, Jewish guilt maybe you throw on here, I look bad to you. So he's a little bit, playing a little game here with Artaxerxes. So the king nicely says, Lee, you want to give one more paragraph?
The king said to me, what is your request? With a prayer to the God of heaven, I answered the king. If it please the king, and if your servant has found favor with you, send me to Judah, to the city of my ancestors' graves, to rebuild it.
Oh, so that's his ask, It's all well and good to pour your wine, Again, everyone can use a little bit of butlering once in a while. That's fine. But you know what? Maybe I could be better used elsewhere. Send me home. Let me go back. Let me rebuild. Let me help out with that effort. It's a big ask, for the king, because the king doesn't like to lose his retainers, right? But it's a reasonable ask, I would think. Sandy, you want to pick up here with the consort?
With the consort seated at his side, the king said to me, how long will you be gone and when will you return? So it was agreeable to the king to send me, and I gave him a date.
Well, I'm going to be gone. Someone's got to pour this wine. It ain't going to pour itself. So, let me know what's going on, when you're going to be back here. Give me some kind of time frame. And they work it out, and it's great. But, Nehemiah is not done yet with his asking of stuff. So, Sandy, let's keep going.
Then I said to the king, if it please the king, let me have letters to the governors of the province of beyond the river, directing them to grant me passage until I reach Judah. Likewise, a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's park, directing him to give me timber for roofing the gatehouses of the temple fortress and the city walls, and for the house I shall occupy. The king gave me these, thanks to my God's benevolent care for me.
Indeed. So he wants a little bit of letters, to serve as some security for him, right? So if we think back to the Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire, Roman citizens would dress a certain way. And the idea was when they traveled, they had markings on them. They had, I think it was a style of dress. I think it was something maybe stitched in. I don't remember the exact details. But the idea was that they could basically travel around the world and no one would mess with them because they were Roman citizens. And the other people knew that if you messed with a Roman citizen, you were going to have a problem. Rome was going to come down and crash on your head if you sort of messed with their folks. In a similar way here, he's like, look, give me some protection. And here I am, this nice Jewish guy, taking this schlep home. Maybe there's some robbers. Maybe there are some people who want to mess with me on the way. But give me a letter showing that you're the king and you're sending me on this mission, so they know if they mess with me, they're messing with you. And having that security was very important. Not to mention a little stipend. You make sure I get some timber, make sure I can build my house, and make sure that I'm not homeless when I get there, right? To make sure I have some stuff I can use to build myself a little bit of a domicile, which helped, right? Sandy, send me one more over here when I came.
When I came to the governors of the province of beyond the river, I gave them the king's letters. The king also sent army officers and cavalry with me. When Sanballat, the Horonite, and Tobiah, the Ammonite servant, heard, it displeased them greatly that someone had come, intent on improving the conditions of the Israelites.
Foreshadowing. Okay, so we have these two dudes, Sandblast, Sanballat, whatever his name is. I don't know what a Horonite is, to be honest. And Tobiah here. These two dudes are not going to be helpful. So we know that here. Horonite. I probably should have Googled that at some point, but I didn't. Okay. Didn't have enough time to Google what the heck that is. Okay, so onwards and upwards. Let's see who's next on my list here. Carolyn, can you unmute? You got it? You don't got it yet. You're still muted. There you go.
Got me?
I got you.
Okay. I arrived in Jerusalem. After I was there 3 days, I got up at night, I and a few men with me, and telling no one what God had put into my mind to do for Jerusalem, and taking no other beast than the one on which I was riding, I went out by the valley gate at night toward the Jackal's Spring and the Dung Gate. Romantic. And I surveyed the walls of Jerusalem that were breached and its gates consumed by fire.
Yeah. You don't think those are nice place names? The Jackal's Spring and the Dung Gate, That doesn't sound like a romantic weekend in, no. Oh my goodness. You can still go to the Dung Gate even today. Yeah, you can still go to the Dung Gate. Much better than the name implies. So that being said, what's he doing? He's touring, right? He's going to take a look. He's going to sort of search the premises when he gets there. Let's see what's on the up and up. And so he's just taking a little evening stroll. Carol, you want to keep going a little bit? I proceeded
to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, where there was no room for the beast under me to continue. So I went up by the wadi by night, surveying the wall, and entering again by the valley gate, I returned. The prefects knew nothing of where I had gone or what I had done, since I had not yet divulged it to the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the prefects, or the rest of the officials. Then I said to them, you see the bad state we are in, Jerusalem lying in ruins and its gates destroyed by fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and suffer no more disgrace.
Indeed. So you see his first plan when he gets there. He says, look, we need to tackle a lot of problems, but we're not going to be able to do anything if people can just invade us whenever they want. If we have no security, if we have no safety, we can't just, ignore that. We have to fix that. And if we're going to have a society, if we're going to rebuild, if we're going to come back here and make this place vibrant again, we have to have walls that work. We have to have gates. We got to do something, so that way when somebody, wants to march against us, we'll have at least a shot, in a fight. But you have to have some kind of protection, some kind of security. And so that is his first goal here. And they're all very excited when they hear this, except for, of course, our friends that we just met, those Horonites and Ammonites. We'll get to them in just a moment. Tyler and Melissa, you want to unmute here?
Here.
I told them of my God's benevolent care for me, also of the things that the king had said to me. And they said, let us start building. They were encouraged by his benevolence.
Yeah, so a nice word here and there is always good to hear, right? So, God's got our back. God's behind us in this project. Let's go. Let's get moving. Let's show a little grit, a little determination, a little commitment, a little vigor. Let's go. Let's get to work. And they go, okay, let's do it. But meanwhile, let's keep going.
When Sanballat the Haranite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab's head, they mocked us and held us in contempt and said, what is this that you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? I said to them in reply, the God of heaven will grant us success, and we, God's servants, will start building. But you have no share or claim or stake in Jerusalem.
Exactly. Leave us alone. We're not going to be revolting here. We're going to, build. We're going to create walls here to protect us from the likes of you guys. We're going to make sure that we're a little more protected than we are now when we're out in the open without the walls. Okay, we're going to skip this because this chapter is a lot about building. And so it's a lot of, they built this part, they built that part, they built this part. And you know what other people did? They built that part. And it just keeps going and going and going and going. It's a lot of building. A lot was a mess, it's like, there's a lot that's broken, needs to be fixed. So this just keeps going and going. It's a long chapter. Okay, so eventually, and I'll just summarize this last paragraphs. So
these were all people who lived in around Jerusalem, right?
Say again, Bob?
These were the people who lived around Jerusalem.
Yeah, these were the ones who were left, who remained. And now they're getting supplemented by the Persian Jews, the Babylonian Persian Jews who are coming back, right? And so you had the remnant that was left over, and now that we have the new troops coming in, so to speak. So Sanballat heard this. He wasn't happy. He was vexed indeed. He was maculatory, saying not nice things. And instead of being a thorn in their side, Tobiah the Ammonite also, sort of plotting and preparing to do mean things. And that's sort of how the end of that chapter goes, which picks up on 4. Melissa, you want to pick up here when Sanballat?
When Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that healing had come to the walls of Jerusalem, that the breached parts had begun to be filled, it angered them very much. And they all conspired together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to throw it into confusion. Because of them, we prayed to our God and set up a watch over them day and night.
I'll point out that in this book already, you're seeing a lot of praying, right? We have some praying, we have some fasting, we have a little bit of that in here, which is nice to see. One likes to see it in our biblical books. A little bit of praying is always good. The enemies list keeps on getting longer. So you have Sanballat and then Sanballat and Tobiah, then some Arabs and some Ammonites. And where did these Ashdodites kind of come out of? They're here for no reason, apparently, but the Ashdodites are also problematic. And so they're hearing all this building going on. They're getting all angry about it. So fine. Now that they're all angry about it, they want to fight. They want to cause strife. And the people are worried. They're still building. They don't want to fight so much right now. So they're going to pray a little bit and set up a watch. You got to have a watch. So they're going to see what's going on, take in the scene. And so Judah, the Israelites are saying what, Melissa? You can keep going.
Judah was saying, the strength of the basket carrier has failed, and there is so much rubble. We are not able ourselves to rebuild the wall. And our foes were saying, before they know or see it, we shall be in among them and kill them and put a stop to the work.
Indeed, right? And so the Israelites are a little worried, right? It's tiring, all this lifting and schlepping. I got enough trouble handing out corned beef sandwiches, and I got to rebuild a wall. You know, like, that's a lot of work. You know, I'm not getting any younger here. So you have to rebuild this wall. And the bad guys going, you see, it takes a lot of work to build this wall. Before they get it done, we're going to go get them and give them a zetz or two. That's going to happen to them, you know, and we'll put a stop to the
Little
work.
crutching, right?
Yeah, a little Gretchen. It's a long day, Bob. That's all I'm saying. You know, building this wall. So, and so there's plotting and planning. Here we get a nice paragraph where the Hebrew is barely comprehensible. And so some of these phrases got a little mangled, but I'll do my best to try to fill them in. Marilyn, you want to pick up here?
There. When the Jews living near them would arrive, they would tell us time and again, from all the places where you shall come back to us. I stationed on the lower levels of the place behind the walls on the bare rock. I stationed the people by families with their swords, their lances, and their bows. Then I decided to exhort the nobles, the prefects, and the rest of the people. Do not be afraid of them. Think of the great and awesome God and fight for your brothers, your sisters and brothers, your wives and homes.
Exactly. Okay. And so the first part of this is where some of the confusion lies, because this sentence has gotten mangled even in the translation, and the Hebrews is very hard to parse. But the idea is that they were creating almost a spy network, right? So the Jews who were living amongst the Ammonites and the Ashdodites and the Horonites and the termites and all the other mites that are there, that the Jews would come to tell their brothers and sisters in Jerusalem, hey, let me tell you what's going on. They're building up an army. They're going to attack from the right side at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. You know, like, you got to get the information so you know how to prepare. They're going to assemble by the dung gate or the fountain gate or the water gate or whatever other gate you're going to have. And so that way it was like a spy network. And so then the Israelites are saying, you know, look, come from wherever you're coming, then go back and then come back to us with more information. Let's keep the flow going. So then the Israelites, the Judahites, can be garrisoned in the proper location if there's going to be a struggle. And then he gives a speech to the nobles, the prefects, the rest of the people, sort of like any good action movie, right? Where you're sort of whipping up the troops, rallying them around, you know, hey, let's get ready to fight, and sort of give them some inspirational, encouraging words. So it gets all of their blood rising, they're ready to go. And so they're spoiling for a fight now too. But, you know, now that all this information is passing back and forth, the enemies don't have that leg up anymore. So Marilyn, tell us what happens.
When our enemies learned that it became known to us, since God had thus frustrated their plan, we could all return to the wall, each to his work. From that day on, half my servants did work, and half held lances and shields, bows and armor. And the officers stood behind the whole house of Judah, who were rebuilding the wall. The basket carriers were burdened, doing work with one hand while the other held a weapon. As for the builders, each had his sword girded to his side as he was building. The trumpeter stood beside me.
Yes, they got a plan, right? And so they have people with their definite tasks, their jobs to do. And it's hard because you have people, some of them have the military stuff ready to go, the swords and shields, the lances, or other stuff, and others are rebuilding. Then you have these other dudes who are doing work with one hand and the other's holding a weapon. So let me just give you a comparison from the Lobel morning routine. You know, right now, Benji completely refuses to be put down in the morning. You know, he wakes up, he's a little cranky, whatever it is. So what has to happen? I got to hold him with one hand and fix breakfast with the other hand. So my workload is almost, you know, like I'm at a much slower pace. I have two hands that can do things a little more efficiently. I got the bench in one hand and I got the breakfast in the other, right? And then Elizabeth also trying to corral the other two maniacs. So there's a lot that's going on all at once. You got to be prepared for anything because you don't know what's going to happen next. So you have to have all your preparations in place because you never know what's going to happen and what's going to be necessary. So that is my comparison here to the building of the wall in Jerusalem. A little vignette. It's a good time at 6:30 in the morning in my house. Okay, so that is that's what he's up to. Bob, do you want to pick up here? I said to the nobles.
I said to the nobles, the prefects, and the rest of the people, there is much work and it is spread out. We are scattered over the wall, far from one another. When you hear a trumpet call, gather yourself to meet that at that place, our God will fight for us.
So we got a system, right? You know, so when you hear the trumpet, you come running, sort of like the shofar, right? Similar idea. When you hear the shofar call, the trumpet, you know it's battle time. Excuse me. And that's what's going to happen. So that's the usage of the trumpeter. Bob, keep going. Hold on, let me scroll down a little bit. And so we worked on.
So we worked on with half were holding lances from the break of the day until the stars appeared, and further said to the people at that time, that every man with his servants lodge in Jerusalem, that we may use the night to stand guard and the day to work. Nor did I, my brothers, my servants, or the guards followed me after taking off our clothes or each weapon, even at the water.
Yeah, you know, they don't want to be caught naked. You know, it's hard to fight when you're naked. So, you know, you have to have your clothes, you have to have your sword. They were very careful, you know, to make sure that they were always sort of armed and always ready to go, right? They don't want to be caught unawares. Okay, so now we're going to take a little bit of a pause from all the wall building, right? And get to another little piece of the puzzle here, which is it ain't easy to rebuild a society, both physically and both culturally, right? And so Nehemiah here has been focused on the physical rebuilding, you know, building up the walls, getting everything strong and secure. Meanwhile, inside the actual land itself, not everyone's being very friendly. You know, we got some problems cropping up here, which need to be addressed. Linda White, you want to pick up here, Linda?
Okay. There was a great outcry by the common folk and their wives against their brother Jews. Some said, our sons and daughters are numerous. We must get grain to eat in order that we may live. Others said, we must pawn our fields, our vineyards, and our homes to get grain to get in trouble, to stave off hunger. Yet others said, we have borrowed money against our fields and vineyards to pay the king's tax. Now we are as good as our brothers and our children as good as theirs. Yet here we are subjecting our sons and daughters to slavery. Some of our daughters are already subjected, and we are powerless while our fields and vineyards belong to others.
Thank you very much for that. So what do we have here? Socioeconomic problems in the area of Jerusalem. Some people are doing fine, living high on the hog. Well, not the hog in Jerusalem, because they don't eat the hog, but they're living well, right? We can understand, right? They're living high on the brisket. They're doing just fine. You know, they they have lots of kids, and they're getting their grain, and they're eating nice and hearty meals. Others like, you know what? Not so great for us, because we're selling off all our stuff. We're selling off our possessions in order to get the grain to eat. And others said, well, you think that's bad? You know, we took out a second mortgage. You know, we have to sort of lease out our property. And even worse, we're leasing out our kids, right? We are basically, you know, selling our kids in order to make payments. So the kids have to work as indentured servants or slaves but until the family gets the money to buy them back, right? And so they're basically subjugating their own kids. Some people, again, living well, right? They got the money, they got the green, they got the coin, they got the shekel, you know, to do whatever they want. and other people suffering, and the question then before Nehemiah is, well, wait a minute. We're one community of Israelites. Like, how are we letting this happen when we have people who are very rich and others who are very poor? And our very poor brethren are suffering and being put in a position where they are literally like becoming enslaved. And this is not a good thing for a number of reasons, but I'll let him tell you about it more than me. Linda, you want to keep going here? It angered me very much.
It angered me very much to hear their outcry and these complaints. After pondering the matter carefully, I censored the nobles and the prefects, saying, "Are you pressing claims on loans made to your brothers?" Then I raised a large crowd against them and said to them, "We have done our best to buy back our Jewish brothers who were sold to the nations. Will you now sell your brothers so that they must be sold back to us?" They kept silent, for they found nothing to answer.
Okay, so for those of us who are doing our work with fast, okay, this is our Nehemiah assembly, right? He is calling the people together, convening a meeting and saying, hey, there's a social justice issue here. That's a problem, right? That our poorer citizens are being forced into further debt by our system that we have set up, right? This is not good. We're working really hard on our end as it is to make sure that we are ransoming, we're redeeming people who are enslaved to the other nations. And now we're like enslaving our own. That's not great. Let's not do that. And of course, they're silent in the face of this withering criticism from Nehemiah, right? And so he is telling them, stop it. This is not good behavior. This is not going to work out well for us. And he's going to give him a little more. Debbie Siegel, Debbie, you want to unmute?
Unmute, okay.
There you are.
So I continued, what you are doing is not right. You ought to act in a God-fearing way so as not to give our enemies, the nations, room to reproach us. I, my brothers and my servants, also have claims of money and grain against them. Let us now abandon those claims. Give back at once their fields, their vineyards, their olive trees, their homes, and abandon the claims for the 100 pieces of silver, the grain, the wine, and the oil that you have been pressing against them.
A little loan forgiveness, right? That doesn't hurt, right? I still got student debt to pay off. Maybe some loan forgiveness would be nice. So what comes in here, right, is that give them a break. People working hard, people trying their best. And it's not advantageous, right, society at large, to have these people crushed under the wheel of oppressive poverty, and so if they're in a position where they have to sell themselves into slavery, that's not great. That's not the way to be. We remember also, frankly, according to the Torah, that we're not supposed to be doing this anyway. So there's another part of this, of course, as well, that is in here, but hasn't really yet been fleshed out, that just like we saw with Ezra in a way, that there's a very big concern that if we aren't living the correct way, right, if we are living in a way that is not in concert with God's laws, with the commandments, the mitzvot, maybe we're going to be slaves again, all of us. Maybe we're all going to go back into exile. Maybe we're going to have bad stuff happen to us like it did, 100 years ago, right? And so there's that big concern here, right, that we need to act in a Jewish way. We need to act in a way that's caring and considerate and compassionate. And again, with a sense of economic justice. So, these people are up to their eyes in debt, and more. Maybe can't give them a break, give them their stuff back, and let them try to return to a sense of, of some kind of normalcy. And of course, who's going to argue with Nehemiah? Debbie, give me one more. They replied.
They replied, we shall give them back and not demand anything of them. We shall do just as you say. Summoning the priest, I put them under oath to keep this promise.
Okay, so they agree. nice. They agree. A little public pressure, right? But they agree. Then you get the priests to make it all kosher, right? Then he gives them a little bit of the old symbolism, a little prophetic here. Shook out the bosom of my garment and said, "So may God shake free of his household and property any man who fails to keep this promise. May he be thus shaken out and stripped." And everyone goes, "Amen." And they praise the Eternal. So it's a deal. A bargain has been reached. The clasping of hands. They have agreed to what's going to happen here. And then very clearly, it's going to say, which it doesn't really say clearly before, that he's the governor now. Nehemiah is the governor of Judah, has been for a while, and he's going to be generous as well. We don't have to keep, we get the idea. But he's gonna be a very generous ruler, quite literally. He's not going to take taxes from the people in the same way because he knows the taxes are already too high. So he's going to be very generous. Okay. Chapter 6. I think we're back to the top of the lineup, I believe. Let me look through here. I think we got everybody. Indeed we do. Sharon, give it a shot here. When word reached our friend Sanballat.
Okay. When word reached Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of the enemies that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a breach remained in it, though at that time I had not yet set up doors in the gateways. Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me saying, "Come, let us get together in Kephiraim in the Ono Valley." They planned to do me harm.
Oh, so a little palace intrigue, He knows when he's being invited to a bad meeting. This meeting he might not end well. And he's seen The Godfather before. Like he knows that he's going to get invited to these meetings and you don't end out so well. So he ignores it. He says, "You know what? I'm not gonna deal with that right now. I'm not gonna come to this meeting." Sharon, want to keep going here? I sent the messengers.
I sent them messengers saying, "I am engaged in a great work and cannot come down, for the work will stop if I leave it in order to come down to you." They sent me the same message 4 times, and I gave them the same answer. Sanballat sent me the same message a 5th time by his servant who had an open letter with him.
Yeah, so what's he doing? He's sort of blowing him off, right? I mean, God, I'm too busy to come talk to you. I'm engaged in great work, and I can't make it. I can't tear myself away. I'm sorry. I'm too busy to be assassinated today. Like he's got stuff to do. It's a lot of hard work to be the governor here. And so they're sort of trading, passive aggressive messages back and forth about coming to have a meeting. I got stuff to do. I'll catch you later. Don't call me, I'll call you. Kind of thing. I would never do such a thing. Never.
Never.
Never. What a thing to do. Okay, so they keep going back and forth. Sharon, give me one more. Its text was?
Sure. Its text was, "Word has reached the nations, and Geshem too says that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, for which reason you are building the wall, and that you are to be their king. Such is the word. You have also set up prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you. There is a king in Judah. Word of these things will surely reach the king. So come, let us confer together."
Help me. Help you. You're causing all these problems. There's going to be a trouble in the end because everyone's talking about it. Everyone's hearing. This is in the ether right now. I heard it through the grapevine. There are a lot of grapevines in Israel and in Judah. I heard it through the grapevine that you're going to rebel, right? It's a problem. And the king's going to know. The king's not going to be happy. Daddy's going to come home and it's going to be a problem, because, the king's going to be really mad. And you're setting up prophets and all this other stuff. Let's talk about this a little bit more, because this isn't going to end well, according to Sanballat and the other dude, Tobiah, I guess. That's right, Tobiah. So again, this seems to be more of just a way of messing with him. Renee, you want to pick up here?
I sent back a message to him saying, none of these things you mentioned has occurred. They are figments of your imagination, for they all wish to intimidate us, thinking they will desist from the work and it will not get done. Now strengthen my hands.
Yeah, you see, so he knows the game they're playing here. They're trying to mess with him, trying to make sure he can't keep building, maybe try to physically harm him, because, if he's the leader of the community, one sure way to stop the work is to cut his head off, right? And so he knows the score here. They're figments of your, what are you talking about? What silly talk is this? Coming to me with this mishigas? No, he's not falling for it. He's not falling for it. Let's keep going. Then I visited Shemaiah, son of Deliah, son of Mechtabel, when he was housebound, and he said, let us meet in the house of God, inside the sanctuary, and let us shut the doors of the sanctuary, for they are coming to kill you. By night they are coming to kill you. Indeed. Okay, so here we have this dude who appears all of this one time. He's apparently a prophet of some sort. Shemamamamamama here. Ramalama Ding Dong is here, right? And he tells him, hey, you know what? It's not safe for you in your home. Come with me. Come to the sanctuary. Come inside the sanctuary. And let's shut the doors. Because you'll be safe
suspicious.
there.
Very
Sounds
suspicious.
a little suspicious, so you can come in and you can claim sanctuary if they're coming to kill you, right? Because you can't be killed in the sanctuary. Turns out you can, but you're not supposed to be doing that, right? So you have to be,
Right.
That's a way of protecting. So he's hearing these words, and as you said, Renee, it don't sound quite right. It's not kosher. It's not looking right. They got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell him. He doesn't buy this so much. So give me one more.
I replied, will a man like me take flight? Beside, who such as I can go into the sanctuary and live? I will not go in. Then I realized that it was not God who sent him, but that he uttered the prophecy about me. Tobiah and Sanballat have hired him, because he was a hireling, that I might be intimidated and act thus and commit a sin. So provide them a scandal with which to reproach me. Aha.
Okay, a little tough with the parsing there, so I'm gonna sort of give that one a little more context. So basically, he's bowing up here, right? He's saying, well, I'm not gonna run. I run this place. I'm Nehemiah. I'm the governor. I'm not running anywhere. Besides, even if I wanted to run, no place I wouldn't run, the sanctuary, because I'm not allowed in there. I'm not a high priest. Only the high priest can go into the sanctuary. And so through these machinations, he realized this guy, Shamalama, he is not there to help him. He's not there to give him sound advice. He's there also to mess with him as part of the plan, because the thought process is, let's send Nehemiah to the sanctuary where he's not supposed to be, right? And then it'll be a scandal. There'll be gossip everywhere, right? Because he's not where he's supposed to be. Maybe it's like him grabbing too much power, whatever it is. But the idea is this action, it will not help him. It will hurt him in the long run. And so it's just another way of these dudes to be mean to him and to find a way to get him out of sorts and to distract him, create a political scandal. An uprising might happen, when this great trespass were to occur. But of course, Nehemiah is too smart for it, doesn't fall for the Mishigas. And so that pretty much is the end of that part over here. It goes well, they are able to finish the wall. They're able to make everything look nice, bright, and shiny like they're supposed to. these are all the people involved.
Oh,
What a cast.
This is very exciting.
Oh, let's read those names.
Oh my God.
Cast
Oh
of
my
thousands.
gosh.
This keeps going.
Wow.
And then we get the horses too. You know, so it just keeps going. Okay, we finally got to where we needed to get to. Okay, so chapter 8. Okay, so everything is rebuilt, everything is bright and shiny. You remember from last time that when we had Ezra, there was that sort of dramatic scene where they're gathered again at the temple, they're reinstituting sacrifices, and they're learning and they're studying together. So this is almost a corresponding text from Nehemiah. It's almost his viewpoint, right, of what is happening, his perspective. Carolyn, you want to pick up here, the entire people?
The entire people assembled as one man in the square before the water gate. And they asked Ezra the scribe to bring the scroll of the teaching of Moses with which the Eternal had charged Israel. On the first day of the 7th month, Ezra the priest brought the teaching before the congregation, men and women, and all who could listen with understanding.
Indeed. So Ezra's in the Torah, right? Ezra's got the Torah there, and it's time to learn. It's time to study together, right? And so the first day of the 7th month, you know, they're going to be there. They're going to study together, right in time for Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so they're going to study a little bit. And Carolyn, give me one more. He read from it.
Sure. He read from it facing the square before the water gate, from the first light until midday, to the men and women and those who could understand. The ears of all the people who were given to the scroll of the teaching. Ezra the scribe stood upon a wooden tower made for the purpose, and beside him stood Mattathiah.
You can stop right there. You don't need to go through. Yeah, you're good. But I love this section so much for a number of reasons. But we have, what do we have here, right? Is we have another description of the first time, really the first time in Jewish history, in recorded history, we have a public reading of the Torah, right? Everyone is gathering together, right? At the temple, everyone is gathering at the Watergate, actually, right? He's in the town square, and he's going to read Torah, right? He's going to teach Torah to everybody. The first light till the midday, and to who? Who's he going to read to? The men and the women. Everyone can understand, right? They're going to be there. They're all gathered together to hear Torah. What a wonderful, wonderful example of a tradition that we're going to do thousands of years into the future, right? And whenever I take, literally almost whenever I take out a Torah scroll, I think about this passage. I think about how I am now doing something, right, that first started 500 or so BCE. That means for 2,500 years plus, right, we've been doing this. Me and you and our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, and in the future, our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be doing just like Ezra 2,500 years ago, taking the scroll into their arms, carrying it down, and being able to teach Torah to the people, right? That's what we do on Shabbat. That's what we do, B'nai Mitzvah, right? We teach that Torah. And we even have the honors here. All the people standing next to him. The temple president's there, the VP of finance, they're all there, you know, whoever they're going to be. Yeah, everyone important enough to get an honor, right? They were also standing there next to him, right, in this moment where he's teaching Torah. I mean, it's a beautiful passage. And it's something that reminds me, you know, of how long and how strong our chain of tradition is, all the way back to the time of Ezra. These are the 5 books of back then. These are the 5 books of Moses. We're going to come together and we're going to learn, right? We're going to read and we're going to learn. We're going to study together, which we even do on a Tuesday night in Clearwater, Florida. You know,
that must be the first Bima too.
The first Bima,
Yes,
right? The first
yes.
Bima. We got a wooden tower here, right, for that purpose, right? They built them a Bima. and a reading table, right, and a stand, and he's reading Torah. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing.
Rabbi, you know what else I liked in that? If you can go back up again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, I like the expression. Can you go? Yeah, go
Yeah.
down. I like the expression, the ears of all the people were given to the scroll of the teaching. It makes
Yeah.
it sound so personal. So, like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
just that they were standing there, their ears were given to the Torah.
They're all there, they're attentive. And
Yeah.
when one could note, as I will, there is no talk of there's the men's section and there's the women's section, right? Like they're all assembled together at the square, right? They're all together for the entire congregation, men and women, you know, all who can listen. They're all together to hear. And you're completely right, about they're giving their ears, they're listening, they're
Yeah.
attentive to the
Nice.
scroll, and it gets even a little bit better. Vizot Torah, you know, like Ezra opened the scroll in the sight of all the people, you know, because he was standing on that tower, right? And so he was able to stand up, and he's lifting the scroll, and he opened it, and everyone's standing up. Ezra blesses the eternal, you know, and people are saying amen to amen with their hands upraised. They bowed, they prostrated. It's a beautiful scene. All these other dudes were happy too. That we have here, but they're all reading from the scroll, and not only reading from the scroll. This gets better, you know. And I know it's 8 o'clock already, but this gets better, right? So over here, they read from the scroll of the teaching of God, but not only do they read from it, they translate it, right, and give the sense so that everyone understands. So even 2,500 years ago, you know, they weren't just saying, you know, do all the Hebrew, you know, and just, okay, you know, great, you know, but
they must have done it in Aramaic then.
a little Aramaic translation, exactly right, Bob. A little Aramaic translation probably, you know, was here as well. So they'll read the Hebrew of the scroll, and then they're not assuming that everyone went to yeshiva, you know, and everyone is, you know, a chacham lev here, knowing everything, right? And so they're going to translate a little bit for us. Good. You know, let us understand what the heck's going on when we read the scroll. So they read and they translate and they're teaching. It's just so beautiful. And it's just what we love to do as a people. We go back to our scroll, we read, we teach, we derive lessons. 2,500 years ago, we were doing this. I love it so much. And then they understand, right? And they're together and they're all, you know, they're so overcome with emotion, right? It's so beautiful. They're so overcome with emotion in this moment. And they're saying, hey, you know, this day is holy to the eternal your God. Don't cry, you know, but they're crying because they're so happy. You know, they're doing tears of happiness. They're so overcome in this moment. I said, don't cry. Instead, what are you going to do? Get that babka going. Eat those choice foods. Get your corned beef, get your pastrami, get your stuffed cabbage. Drink some sweet drinks, get some manischewitz, a couple mojitos even, whatever you want. And then don't eat for yourself, right? Give portions to everyone else, right? It's Shabbos. You know, it's a good day. Let's all eat food together. Give them food because this day is holy to God. Let's rejoice. Ibdu et Hashem b'simcha. Let us worship the Lord. Let's worship the eternal with gladness and joy and corned beef and have a really good time all together. Let's be holy. Let's rejoice in this holy day. Have a great day. Don't be sad. You know, give tzedakah, send people portions of food and drink, make great merriment. And why were they able to make great merriment? Why? Because they understood. They understood what they were told. They're learning together. And that's the cause of the greatest rejoicing. Because when we learn together, when we study together, when we are deriving lessons from the Torah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? And we're making the world better when we do. We're increasing our learning so we know how to go out and live in the world. And shouldn't that be celebrated, right? Shouldn't that be something, a cause for rejoicing, that we're studying and we understand what we're supposed to do again? Because for so long we didn't know. For 50 years, we were in exile, right? And we didn't know in the same way. And the people who weren't in exile were in their own kind of captivity, of the captivity of poverty, right? And of brokenness. And now is a time of great healing and rejoicing. Let's learn together. Let's celebrate. Open up the schnapps. It's going to be a great time, everybody, because we are doing once again what we're supposed to be doing, which is being in community, studying, learning, understanding God's ways, and being able to then put that back out into the world with joy and gladness. Amen. Amen. Excellent.
It makes me think about when we all finally can go back into the sanctuary together.
Right.
Yeah,
100%.
like that.
I was thinking that same thing.
Yeah,
Exactly. 100%.
That was really,
right.
yeah.
I like that.
And that part's really relevant, obviously. And they continue to celebrate. The next part is they celebrate Sukkot together, right? You know, they're able to literally have the festival of ingathering, right? Where we're going to come and create booths and be together, right? For more studying and more eating. You know, we're going to do all that together again for Sukkot. And it is exactly right. It is, I think, that vision of saying, wow, how much power there is when we're able to actually come together again in community, when we've been in exile for so long. And now we're going to come back and we're going to rejoice again. We'll get there.
Yes,
We'll get there.
You will.
for sure. For sure.
Yes,
You will.
We're partway there now.
yes.
Slowly but surely. Yep, that is exactly right. You know, we're able to, you know, get together a little bit more. And again, I'm very, again, cautiously optimistic, but it's a slow steps. We're getting there.
Yes,
We're getting there. High holidays, here we come.
Yay.
yes.
Okay, my friends, that's what I got for you for tonight.
Thanks,
See you in
Rabbi.
2 weeks.
Thanks, Rabbi.
I'm
Good
all
night,
worked up now.
Rabbi.
I'm all, you know, okay. Okay.
Good night.
That was
Good
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. See you
Good
next
night.
week.
Good night. Thank you so
Bye.
much. I'll catch you later.
Okay.